Monaco has come and gone, and I can tell you this is one of the most straightforward races that we've seen in a long time, a very long time. And congratulations to Charles Leclerc. And for those of you that follows me, I've told you the last two races will not be won by Red Bull, but they managed to win the last race. But this race, you see, it came and gone, and they are going to Canada in 2 weeks time. And I can tell you Red Bull is really under pressure, and we can see that they're making mistakes, and they'll make more mistakes. So I can tell you next race is still between McLaren and Ferrari. Certainly Chris Horner will come up and give us real live excuses on why they could not win, on what happened, their suspension too stiff, they could not turn the steering and this and that, they could not ride the curbs, the car is jumping like a kangaroo. Sergio Perez was hampered in the race by the ass of Kevin Magnussen, so he could not proceed or project forward. He could have come 9th or 10th, so this and that and these and stories and more stories. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. The truth is what the truth is. When you are making mistakes or when you are inconsistent, you just come out and own to it so that you can know where you are moving forward. Yeah, they know what they have to do. And big appreciation to Professor Andrea Newey. He's one of my new friends on the grid now. You know, I love the way he carries his notepad and analyze all the cars on the grid. And I can tell you, whichever team Andrea Newey is joining next year is going to enjoy him, because he's learning a lot from looking at the physical qualities of all cars on the grid, especially the cars that are topping, that is the Ferrari, the McLaren and the Red Bull. He looks at those cars most times and looks at other cars to see what they are doing right and what they are doing wrong. I believe that man is the master of aerodynamics. He's one of the best aerodynamists in the world, and that guy is doing a beautiful job. He's doing a wonderful job, perfect job, and he's so focused that he understands what he has to do. He's not a contemporary man that will do some things on the laptop or whatever, but he understands the basics of the drawing. That is how it's all started, and he understands it to the core, and he knows how to draw it. So he doesn't go out with computer or whatever. He goes out with his drawing pad and his drawing pen, looks at the car, keep it in his head, withdraw, and do something spectacular. This race, like I said, was straightforward, and what I will just do, I will analyze all the cars and how the race went. So on the first lap, 3 incidents. The biggest one was caused by Kevin Magnussen of the Haas, in which he took out Sergio Perez and took his own teammate out, Nico Hülkenberg, and that, I believe, was seen as a racing incident because it was immediately after the first turn, going into the second turn. He clipped the wall. He thought he had the space, but the space was not there. 3 people cannot go through that place, or 3 people will never in this life go through that space. He clipped the wall and he tagged Sergio Perez, and Sergio Perez, turning around, tagged his teammate, and that was the end of the race for the 3 of them. Lucky Sergio Perez, he was able to come out unscathed. He was so lucky, but thank God to Kevin Magnussen that it was a racing incident that could have seen him out of next race in Canada, because if he had gotten a penalty point for this incident, he's totally out of the race in Canada, or possibly maybe Spain also, and that would be a very bad one for the team. And I'm sure Ayao Komatsu will deal with him in words in a very harsh way, because that was very unnecessary for the team. It's a family team and they are still growing and they are spending a lot of money looking for investors. You destroying cars is very unacceptable. The second incident was immediately after turn 1. That was Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri, in which they tagged themselves and Carlos Sainz lost his tire and was unable to turn. But because the red flag was up before the first section of the track, Carlos Sainz's position was reinstated back to 3rd. And the last incident, which is the 3rd incident, was between the Alpine team going under the bridge. Esteban Ocon needed not to do that, and also added or culminated with the team I talked about it, that they should not race themselves. He needs not to do that. Yes, he might be going to another team next season, he might be going to Audi. Last year I've talked about this issue of Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Esteban Ocon is a driver that does not grieve for anybody, and I'm sure that's why Mercedes are afraid of bringing him back to Mercedes. Esteban Ocon no go grieve for anybody, and we all understand. And Pierre Gasly too is a driver like that, and I think from what they said, they've spoken about it right before the race, before they enter into the race. And Esteban Ocon went for a gap that I believe was there, but he was able to squeeze out his teammate and destroy his own car. Now, for a team that seeked so much investment last year, destroying the money of the investors, it is not acceptable. It doesn't make sense. Bruno Farming, that's the team principal, I'm sure would never be happy, and he will have to deal with Esteban Ocon with words that will be so harsh, because That is very, very unacceptable of him, very, very unprofessional of him. And I believe these guys can do more than that. And aside from those 3 incidents at the beginning of the race was very simple already, because the red flag was up. A lot of people will change their tire, and Monaco is a place that's very difficult to overtake, and they can manage it to the end, and that is what they did. The race was pretty dull, but to Charles Leclerc, it was a good race. And let me talk about Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. That is the second Monegasque winning a race in Monaco in 93 years. And Monaco is like one of the holy grail of racing because of the difficult terrain in racing. It is like a grand slam of racing, and is one of the best places in which a lot of drivers wish to win. And congratulations to Charles Leclerc having his 3rd pole and his 1st win. That place is a place in which you are on the front row and you are winning. But for him, it had either been running into the wall, or strategy in which the team brought did not work for them. But unfortunately, today they did a good job. Nothing strategic. It was only Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen that really played a strategic role in the top 10. Others, nothing to really play in the top 10. But below them, there were other strategies just to move ahead. But the main strategy was between Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen's Red Bull. Still, they remain in their position. They were unable to catch George Russell. Lewis Hamilton was unable to switch position with Max Verstappen. And I think let me talk about that before I go back to Charles Leclerc. The Mercedes team did not do a good justice for Lewis Hamilton. They should have told him before he changed his tire to pull up a good in lap, and after he changed his tire, a good out lap, so that he could have jumped Max Verstappen, in which the Red Bull team did for Max Verstappen. I knew why Mercedes didn't do that, and I'll tell you why. The Red Bull team, immediately Lewis Hamilton was changing his tire, Max Verstappen was able to put the tire will be changed under pressure, set a good distance, and immediately he changed. He did a good out lap, and that was how he was able to put Lewis Hamilton behind him. And Lewis Hamilton complained about that. Now, what Mercedes were trying to do was not to make Lewis Hamilton to have the opportunity to jump his teammate George Russell ahead. That was why they didn't tell him that. But I think if they had told him that, they would have protected him, and they might have come 5th and 6th in the race. They're trying to protect what they really don't need to protect. They know they are not going to pit Lewis Hamilton's teammate, that is George Russell, and Lewis Hamilton could have jumped Max Verstappen and also protected his teammate with his fresher tires. Well, it was their own fault not picking the points that were on the table for them, because the 6th position was a point on the table for them which they could have picked, and would have been a nice one for them to close in on their competitors and give a gap between themselves and Aston Martin. But wow, that is Mercedes for you. They keep making their own mistakes and keep putting themselves in bigger problems. Now back to Charles Leclerc. A very good race for him. And also to Ferrari. We can see how Ferrari have improved. Ferrari and McLaren have really improved. They brought upgrades, and I believe they are bringing more upgrades to Canada, which is the next race, to make sure they keep the Red Bull at bay, because that's the only reason why the competition this season can change form. And here we will now see, for those that are saying one driver is the best, we can see tables turning, and we will see if these people can also come out and keep saying it's all about the driver, not about the car. Because I can tell you, Formula 1 majorly is all about the car. The driver has a lot to play, but majorly is all about the car. If you don't have a good car, no matter how you drive it, it's still going to be a rubbish, pure rubbish. And kudos to Max Verstappen. He has driven the last 2 years solid in that very good Red Bull. Now the Red Bull is under pressure. Will he be able to give the right drive? We can see him yesterday tagging the wall. That is what he will always do, because whenever he's under pressure, or the Red Bull is under pressure, they make mistakes. He makes mistakes. He's not a perfect driver that doesn't make mistake under pressure. All the drivers make mistakes, but his has been so much, especially in 2018, 19, 20. He makes a lot of mistakes and putting his team under pressure. And I know that it will get to a point in which you will start complaining about the car, and Max Verstappen will start complaining about the engine, because they will need to go to higher modes and they will blow a lot of engines, and might get to a point in which they will use up their whole engine, ICE, CU, PU, everything, and use like 2 or 3 more in the season. I am seeing that happening already, because there will be a lot of complaints if he cannot challenge and possibly win this competition. He's going to put the team under pressure, and he himself will be under pressure just to challenge, and that might not work well for Red Bull, and that might put them even behind some teams they don't need to be, and we will still see that. I'm wishing other teams like Mercedes that said they are bringing more upgrades in Canada, Montreal, and also Lewis Hamilton will be able to get the front wing that his teammate George Russell had in Monaco. He will be able to get it, and that will propel them forward, I think. And Canada is a different track on its own, the different beast. It's like an hybrid track and a very good track, so I think it will be a very good race. And if Mercedes can bring up those bits, yeah, to be candid, Lewis Hamilton was the one that rejected that front wing that they brought to Monaco because he does not want any damage from his side. He was trying to protect it, and he knew the front wing would cost him 2/10, in which that did eventually in the qualifying. But I think he did a good job in the practices for them to learn more about the car, the old front wing, and what they can do with the new front wing. So I think it's a very beautiful thing for Lewis Hamilton to do, and for the racing in which we have in our hands. And it's going to be a very wonderful season because we have a beautiful race in our hand now. The remaining 16 races are going to be bananas, are going to be wild, and are going to be automatically interesting. Monaco might not be as interesting as we expected because there were no strategies play out, but it is still interesting seeing Ferrari win and seeing Charles Leclerc winning from pole position after the third try, and seeing the whole Monegasque people very, very happy for him, and looking at Fred Vassell, my old friend, laughing and being happy for a win for Charles Leclerc this year is a good thing. 8 races down this year, 3 had gone to different drivers. We are talking about Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, and Carlos Sainz, and the remaining 5 going to Max Verstappen of Red Bull. We still have 16 races to go. It's going to be very interesting races. Don't miss any of it. I love you guys. This will be the only analysis for this race, and we have some shots coming in. I love you guys. Bye. Cheers.